Today we are pleased to meet with Françoise LE GOFF, who serves as the director of the Global Services Center of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. Thank you, Françoise, for meeting with us. I know that you have worked in the humanitarian sector for many years, and I remember earlier discussions with you about your time in Zimbabwe and an earlier webinar about the new headquarters building for the Red Cross in Geneva. We will share the earlier webinar about the new headquarters with the participants in the course as an example of consultation with numerous stakeholders involving even the local community around where the building was built. It's a very interesting and a different kind of consultation for a large stakeholder group, as I understand it. Perhaps to start our discussion, you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, and nice to meet you online. So I'm Françoise Le Goff. I am French, and having worked, I would say, most of my career for the International Red Cross. I have been initially a teacher in law and economics for technical schools, and I moved to a professional humanitarian worker, having started as a volunteer in Red Cross in my local community. So when I joined the International Red Cross, I was lucky to be working in the field as delegates on mission in Africa, in Middle East, and in various countries in Europe. I have been also based in the headquarters in Geneva, dealing with fundraising for relief operation, relationship with partners, recruiting staff for operations, and managing some projects. Eventually, at some point, I moved from Geneva headquarters to the field on mission in Africa, and I was 10 years based in Kenya, Zimbabwe, and South Africa as a regional director to coordinate all relief operations in that sectors, usually 10-15 countries, but also to contribute to the development of capacity for national Red Cross and Red Crescent societies, as well as negotiating with the states and having diplomatic relationship with other international organizations, United Nations, or governments. So after 20 years in operation, I wanted to have a break, and I came back to the headquarters in Geneva, and I had this original and unique opportunity to serve in developing a new headquarters. So to destroy the existing one and to rebuild the headquarters. And through that experience and based on some Baha'i principles that I had applied in Africa during relief operations, I tried to see how it would work in a developed country and an organization which is very well established with local population. And I realized that it doesn't matter where you work, whether in Africa, in Europe, or anywhere, the principles apply everywhere. The way to apply it might adapt to the culture, but applying this principle have made a huge difference and probably the key for success of the project. So now for me, it's I'm moving to Budapest, Hungary, to lead Global Service Center, and it will be to see how we can implement the global vision of services from that decentralized, I would say, headquarters in Budapest, and try to work to disseminate certain consultative principle at a different level. So I have worked very local level, regional, national, international, and I can see principles work at every level. So that is why I'm fascinated by the topic of consultation and how we can not only continuously improve the approach, but really learn from that and make sure that people are feeling, I would say, positive. I just mentioned recently to somebody, when you do a compromise, it is somehow negative for somebody because you have to let go something.
Yeah.
So when you work through a consultation, it is positive for everyone.
Very good. It's and this experiences that you've had in different places around the world and at different levels, I guess, of using consultation. For example, in the case of the headquarter building, my understanding was you dealt with a rather large group of stakeholders that were involved in the design of the building and making it something that would be useful not only for the Red Cross, but also something valuable to the community. Maybe you could talk a little about a few of the takeaways from the consultation with stakeholders. Did you use consultation in a way that stakeholders could understand? Did you ever identify it as Baha'i consultation, or do you just use the principles of consultation with the group? What sorts of takeaways do you have about it?
So initially, I used the principles of consultation, and I didn't say the Baha'i way, because it was to create trust and friendship with the people, first of all. So based on that, later on, the people who knew me a little bit more and were really interested in the process, I told them that I was inspired by Baha'i principle, and that created another level of conversation with the people. So for me, initially, it was to put in practice its principles, to see how it works, and to make sure people are conscious about the impact of consultation. So I started by saying, well, let's have a discussion, and then let's consult what are the different views, what are your ideas. And it helped people to come in a positive way, because they say, well, there is no risk in coming to discuss and to have a conversation. So to bring people in a positive mode and to make sure that they come with ideas and with viewpoint that all views are positive, it was really to invite them for a conversation, to be clear on what we want to achieve. When I consult with staff, for example, I told them what would be the ideal place of work and what would make you work effectively. What is the environment you wish to have? And that was a conversation. Then with the local authority, it was to say, we work together because the funding methodology we approve, which was extremely favorable by having a loan for 50 years with 0% interest, that was a big deal. So it means that in return, what people feel that they should contribute but not impose a view. It's not because we get a loan from a government that the government has a right to impose certain views. But it creates a relationship which allows to exchange views. In addition, because this relationship was open, we got a lot of advice, and we prevent mistakes, because then the relationship was based on truthfulness, and we were able to say, how can you help us to make it even better? And when I proposed to use only local companies, even if we are international organization, but to say we got the funding from Switzerland, we will spend it in Switzerland, we will develop the economy of Switzerland, then it created a very positive environment. But this is what I have done when I was in Kenya, in Zimbabwe, or in South Africa. I have always used local companies for developing local economy. So in addition to this principle, it was positive for people to understand that international organizations are also contributing to develop local environment, local economy, and have a positive business. So we are now the organization as a role model for having used 100% local companies for constructing the building. And in addition, it's easier now if we need any reparation because they are there. We have had a lot of advantage because their image, their reputation was important. So they did a good work. And I told them, you are not building a headquarters. You are contributing to the International Red Cross serving humanity by using your personal services and your skills, your competencies in doing something useful. And if you do a good work, it will be less stressful for us. And then we will be able to better serve the humanity because our job is to serve humanity. So this relationship made people proud and very happy to contribute to that project. And honestly, in the end, all consultation in advance avoid a lot of mistakes, avoid a lot of delays. So we terminated the project in time and within budget. So that is also, in terms of business case, it was an excellent business. When we also decided to consult the local community because we say the building is there in front of their eyes every day. So if they don't like it, it's sad, but we are there during day and it's empty at night. And they are there at night because they come back from work. So how can we consult them to see what matters for them? And during the construction, we share a lot of information. We had some, we tell them tomorrow there will be noise because of this and that. And involving them in understanding what we did was also another way to create trust. And then when this local community had to negotiate with the city to reshape the street and the local headquarters, the local place, we were involved, we were consulted as a local company to make sure that our voice can strengthen in a way their revendication so that the city would listen to them. So they considered the organization fully part of the local environment and contributing to make it better for everybody.
Now, in this activity, which sounds really interesting and really well done, it's very nice to hear. As I understand it, you were the boss, you were the supervisor of this activity, if I'm not mistaken. So, do I understand correctly that in this consultation that you kind of led the show and kind of made all the decisions? Is that right? How did others get involved? Did you, have to find agreement with them? Were they sometimes difficult to deal with? Did you often have differences of opinion that had to be worked out? How did that come about?
So what I have learned as also a female manager and in an environment, especially construction, which is usually male environment, is that we have to be very professional and to defend some principles. So the principles were shared in advance, which means that when we selected the enterprise, when we presented issues to people, very clearly we put the rules of the game on the table. And then I said, my job is to deliver a headquarter building for the benefits of all staff, and it is a project which should last 100 years. So it is not for now. I have no personal interest. I am delivery for the good of the society. So I put very strongly the purpose and the objective. And then I explain also that I like very much to consult. We can discuss any issues in advance, but when the consultation is finished and a decision is taken, that's it. We do not come back to a decision if proper consultation were done. So it was also to limit this endless discussion that may happen in some meeting where people meet and turn around the topics and not reaching a decision because they have whatever interest. So we are clear about what we want to achieve, how we do it, and at the end, what is the process of a decision-making element.
That's okay. That is such an interesting story. And of course, you have done another webinar about it, and we have that, and we can share that. And so we want to now get down to a little more about day-to-day activities that we see in businesses around the world, and businesses that are making decisions, and businesses that are implementing activities, for their work. And typically, as we understand it in discussing with other people using Baha'i consultation in business, most of the time consultation is dealt with in teams, not with really large stakeholder groups like the one that you were working with, but rather with teams. It could be a finance team, it could be a marketing team, it could be a research team. Are you using consultation in that sort of a way now in the work that you're doing? And if so, maybe you could talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, indeed. For example, I am also experiencing, like many people with the COVID, a new way of work using technologies and having to start a new job at distance. So I had to meet people one by one, and small team by small team, and then big teams. And just today we had a general staff meeting with the whole organization where 600 people were together online, so from all over the world. So it means to a certain extent the COVID created opportunities to use fully the technology and maybe to leverage the fear of technology and the fear also to work remotely. So it has been a process of learning, and some people manage very well, others had more difficulty. But as a manager, I have done a lot of individual discussion, I would say conversation with people to understand every time was, what do you do? What are your challenges? And what are your solutions? So 80% of the time, people would have the solutions, but nobody would ask them. So if you start by saying, what are your solutions and what do you recommend, they feel responsibility and they feel more interest in their work because it's becoming meaningful. Secondly, when I had consulted all the individual people, I started to regroup them in small teams where then I would say I identify one or two issues which I think we need to discuss all together to bring your various point of view on the table and try to see what is the best solution. And after having done that, I identify key strategic problem, I would say, or shortcomings. And now I'm going back to the senior management of the organization by saying we cannot do this job in the field unless we agree the strategic direction from the senior management in Geneva. And now I have individually talked to each manager to explain that and come the point where we can sit together as management to create a kind of governance team for this global service office and to have a clear approach on how we will have the good governance of this office, because it serves the whole planet. So we have to ensure that we deliver, but we need to be much more clear on roles and responsibility, on the challenges, and to in a way use better the funds we have in a more meaningful way. So we don't ask money, we don't ask more people, we just ask clarity on roles and responsibility and give us space and certain autonomy and flexibility or fluidity to implement the activities with common sense. And most of the time what I realize is that when people are not empowered, when there is no trust, then the consultation goes nowhere. And if you don't have the proper trust, then you cannot solve the structure problems, the relationship problem, or even the technical problem that may occur. So here it's quite significant for me to start with the headquarters, understand what they want, go to the people, check what they do, come back to the headquarters to counter check, and then propose a strategic direction that if everybody agree, and it should not be a problem because it is based on what people have said, then indeed we are going somewhere. And then it's worth to put your energy, your effort in something where you create yourself the benchmark. You create yourself, okay, where do we want to go? And then the how to go there depends a bit about your personality as a manager and the guidelines or the policy of the organization. Then you have tools. So how you use well the tools is when you are clear yourself and that you can take the full extent of your own position. And as you say, I'm a director, which means I'm there to manage. So I need space to manage. So otherwise, you give me a title and a role and no space to manage because you have to be under legal consideration, financial consideration, audit consideration. So we are managed by system, not by people. And this is in a way what I'm fighting. Systems, finance, audit, legal, whatsoever are tools, not what the people should do and the common sense they should have. I'm sorry, there is telephone. Sorry.
Excellent. Oh, thank you. It's so great to hear how you're going about things. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you build trust? You mentioned that without trust, the consultation goes nowhere. And how do you build that in your teams and with your headquarters executives? And so I was wondering if you could talk more about how you build trust with the individuals, with the teams, with the bosses. How do you go about it?
So what I realize is that when an individual is not feeling confident or does not trust you, the level of work would be in a way mechanical, and people will follow the job description. They will do their work, but they will never do excellent work. They will never go beyond. And what I always expected is really to get the best of people so that they can develop themselves and they can also contribute in a better way to a situation. So it requires that they have some confidence in you and that it is a true process. So it means walking the talk. And I always say to people, I say what I do, but I do what I say. So then you have no surprise and you can trust that if I say something, that will happen. And if there is an issue, I will come back to you to say why it has changed. So it is in a way of respect of people. And so it starts by knowing the job of the individuals. What are they doing? So I read the job description. I'm very clear if the job description is what people do. So I say, what do you do exactly? What are the problems and what are the solutions? So when we have a good basis to understand, then it allows me to say, as a manager, this is what I expect from you. So you have raised some problem. I may have some problem also. So here they are. And we have this discussion about how to agree on in a way, the objective and then the work itself and the way of work. And sometimes the main problem is that we may agree on the work to do and the activity, but not on the way of doing it. And here we have a lot of differences because you have Some individuals who are very creative, innovative, or speed, or will work in a certain way, and others who will need to be accompanied or encouragement, or not everybody are the same. So you need to adapt a little bit the work style to make sure each individual find their own way. So it is a kind of cascading down. You work with your close team, usually 5-6 people eventually. And when these people function well, then it can cascade to all the teams. I put a lot of emphasis on the people like my executive assistant, finance manager, HR manager. So these are the key people which I need to trust and to be sure that we are on the same line, on the same voice, and that the let's say if we have to share decision, the decision are communicated properly. So and also I don't want that the people filter in a wrong way, which means if somebody wants to have a meeting with me, the question is not for them to cut off, to say, no, it's not possible, she's busy, but to make sure, okay, let's see when we can find the best time. So it's not this individual to filter and decide instead of me or instead of the demander. So when this is happening in a normal way, that you are accessible, that the process of discussion is open, when we understand each other, we agree on the objectives and priority, it's much easier to work on the delivery and to see what's happened or not happened. And also to come back at the end, and every time I say, well done, great job, on a small little issue every day. But when something goes wrong, I also say it immediately. And I say, there, something is wrong, or I do not agree, or it's not okay. Because if people want to grow, they need to correct immediately. And we should avoid that people have resentment or feel guilty, or, you know, what I call the negative forces. When you have negative forces around you, the atmosphere becomes toxic. And then it turned to interpersonal relationship, to narcissism or whatsoever. And initially, it is simply a relationship which does not work, or where people are managed by fear. So if you're afraid of your colleagues, of your manager, it means that how can you deliver the best? How can you trust? No, you can't. So in a certain team, I put an injection of what I would say, I call it Red Cross spirit, or it could be values, spiritual, to elevate the dialogue and the debate on the people. When I was doing this building headquarters in Geneva, my position was Director of Administration. And I found that title really absolutely dry, even if it is what I was doing. But when people say, what do you do? I said, I contribute to build a new civilization by having a quality process all along for serving people in a better way. And people say, wow. So we were laughing about it. And I was explaining that if I don't elevate my vision on the purpose of what I am doing, how can I communicate this enthusiasm to others? And how people would willingly follow me if I am dry or if I am just a worker. No, I'm doing something much different, much more important. In fact, it doesn't matter my title or what I'm doing, if it is a construction building. No, what matters is how I do it with people, how we elevate excellence, how we bring a certain quality every day, and how do we care to each other. So for me, trust is built also upon care. How is going your family, or do you have any worries? Now with the COVID, we have plenty of experience or how it is difficult to manage your children at home, your relationship with your spouse, your worry not to visit your old parents who are stuck in a retired home, that you cannot travel, that whatever. And suddenly maybe your job is put on hold and you don't know if you will find it. So it created a lot of stress, which are different to manage if you have children, adolescent, old people, and if you are managing a team or you manage yourself. So it requires a lot of sensitivity to just accompany that. And I cannot do miracle. I don't know, but just asking, not how are you doing, but how do you feel? Because it's really talking about feelings, about emotions. And then when people are not well, is to say, yes, I understand you are not well. It's okay that you are not well. And we can do this work later or take a bit of more time. You know, give space for people and show we care about them. And actually, one colleague just said recently, because he was very worried with a family situation and with children. At a point, he was ready to quit his job to try to solve the issue. And when I told him, okay, maybe you don't need to quit, maybe you don't need to decide now, but why you don't go with your children and do what you have to do, we'll see later. And after 1 month, the situation changed because the children who wanted to go do not want to go anymore, want to stay. So he could have lost the job for a wrong reason. But because we cared and we give space and flexibility to adapt to a situation, then now the person say, I want to stay in my job and I have plenty of ideas and I want to do X, Y, and Z. So I feel that it was a good example that caring for people, at the end, as a manager, it's very good because I didn't want to lose that colleague, you know. It would have disrupted the work tremendously. So by having this space, it's a win-win game for everybody. And I believe that consultations in advance and developing this trust feeling would be, in fact, a good business tool, I could say. It's saving money. It's because you have less staff turnover. You can trust what people are doing. You can avoid mistakes. So I have demonstrated through various projects that this way of work is a good business model. Also.
You know, when we talk with other people doing consultation in business, they often mention, that's the best way to put it, rather difficult and strong-willed people that don't really so much look to find agreement or consensus about an issue. They're kind of pushing their own theme a little bit. You must have a wonderful organization because all of your people seem to be so wonderful and very open to these sorts of things. Or is it possible that also this has to be developed in the culture so that people become more open and listen better to each other? I mean, what's your experience with this?
You know, well, someone could say that working in Red Cross predestined this kind of attitude and behaviors, and why not, hopefully. But I have seen the same working with government where people are really following strongly certain pattern of work, or even when I work with the construction companies, which honestly are pure business and absolutely not humanitarian. In fact, when you give opportunity to people to work in the right direction, unless they want to do fraud and they want to have this kind of interest, then indeed they are willing to try, because I believe everybody wants to do good work, want to be happy, so if we need a sense in our life, we need meaning, we need really good direction. So if you work with that and you put the value in advance and you look into, well, the nobility of these people, their soul, what is good, and put that in the front, it makes a difference. And I have managed a very, very sensitive situation with the local community and with authority and construction by, in a way, forcing people sometimes to come to the same table and just make space for them to listen each other. And I said, well, now we listen the construction company, and you need to hear why it is a difficult situation for them. So people listen to them. And then I said, now we will listen to the local inhabitants who are really pissed off with the noise and with traffic, and that they cannot sleep very well. And of course, and at the end, they came together to find the best solution, to agree on hours, at what time we can do what. And instead of starting at 7 a.m. the work, companies agree to start at 8 a.m. and to announce in advance the bad days when they will be drilling or do whatever tough job. So everybody understood that construction company are noisy, are doing dust, are doing that. So there is no way. But if we look at within 1 or 2 years, you will have a nice building and it will be there for 100 years. There will be no more problem. So what is 2 years of problem? So it's to bring the people to acknowledge what they do, what is their reality, and be a little bit understanding.
Mm-hmm. You have described so well how to lift up the conversation, to bring forth the nobility of the people around you. It's beautiful to see. Thank you.
Do they know that you're Baha'i?
Yes, now I'm quite open with it. So people wonder what is it. So I explain, but at the end, I try to put in practice the principle. For example, what I found very difficult is backbiting, and that is really always there, because this one has not done this one has done that. So and you have these rumors. At some point, I was calling myself a rumor killer, because I was asking people, why do you say that? Oh, somebody told me. Who? I don't know. So if you don't tell me who, it means it's you who created. No, it's not me. So who? So finally the person say, well, it's because I heard from this one. And I say, that's okay, but let's go together to see that one. Why does this person say that? And then going back to the source, and usually either it was misinterpretation or wrong situation, or in few cases, it was really, a case of not very nice or bad intention. So in that case, it's better to talk about it. I said, this is not what we expect from people if we care. And so by going to the source of the issue and understanding what is wrong, it makes your reality, and probably very quickly people start to think, I better be careful not to say any rumor, because I will be the one accused of creating them. And it has helped a lot. In few weeks, the whole situation turned in a different way. But doing that requires courage. And this is why, alongside trust, we need courage. Courage to take decision, to address the true problem. For example, to address underperformance. When people does not perform, when people are toxic, you need to address. And sometimes you need to cut the rotten branch to protect the tree. And here is something that we have often difficulty, or we do it in a very negative process by saying to people, either we don't tell the people the truth, we don't give them a chance to amend and to improve, and we fire them like that, and they redo the same outside. because they have not understood. So I believe there is a process of education in managing the underperformance, not only for doing a good work, but especially when it is linked to behavior. There should be a process for people to be educated in a way to transform themselves. So that is, it's a very important aspect.
Have you found that once you started using these principles of consultation, are you finding that people are spreading it, that they're using it within their own processes and their own groups?
In fact, it's quite interesting because with my team, I was quite explicit on what makes successful consultation or not, and then I make sure that when people sometimes was on their own, I say, well, think about this, and if you have a question, you come back to me. But suddenly I saw them starting using this consultative approach and checking information and calling people rather than writing a note or putting on hold for one night a tough message until you really are sure you will not hurt people. Because sometimes, people feel that consultation is to, or trust means to tell all the truth. And I said, of course, we should say the truth, but there is a way to say the truth. And if the truth is to hurt somebody, it will create disunity. And above everything, unity in the workplace is even more powerful than anything. So for me, the objective has been to create a united team. So unity as an objective, consultation as a tool, and really trust as a glue to make that happen with courage. And I think that aspect. And then to explain to people when we work, of course, we get money for the work we provide, but we are here doing an act of service. And I was also inspired by, in the Baha'i faith, when we say work is worship. And indeed, for me, I'm contributing to this new civilization through my work, and that to make people happier, to have different aspects. And when being explicit about what it is to be a Baha'i, and a certain kindness and certain respect, even it was one day, 2 days ago, I got a contact from somebody I work with in Turkey, and saying that I have inspired her in such a way that she always think about what we have done, and she sent me a beautiful poem by saying, I always think of you with that, and humbleness to pay attention to people, and so on. So it was really nice, and I say, if I have planted that seeds that people can remember and reflect, I don't know how many seeds were planted and how many trees have flourished, but if I have not done it, for sure there would have been nothing. So I don't know the result, but unless you do it consciously, then it's happened. And I really believe more and more that when through consultation, how we can bring much other aspect. For example, we could say consultation and justice, because consult may allow a certain space for people to talk, to bring their idea, which are just and fair. Or if something goes wrong, by consulting about it, you could correct or repair the issue. So justice and consultation are very close to each other. Then I would say gender issue, gender and diversity. When you consult, you have men, women from all race, possibly all age, so that diversity in a company, in a business, then is open. So you give a chance to the younger to learn, to the older to share their experience, but also to listen to new way of thinking. And we talk often about now the Generation Z, the way they were. It's completely different from the other generation. So how, as a manager, in the generation X, Y, whatever, you work with a new generation of Z, and you feel these people are born with a computer, they are connected to the social network, and they don't need a desk, they don't need nearly anything. No, a laptop in an armchair is enough. So that we have to learn and to accept and to adapt. So this is why the consultation is a tool for practicing diversity and gender issue, for practicing justice, and I could go through more values where I would say it's a miracle tool that you can use in plenty of situations.
One of the things that we talk about when we have the course is that the process is, in fact, can be rather creative. And what that actually means may differ from person to person. Personally, I'm always thinking that, we use objectively, we reason and we make decisions, but also we may actually turn inward and have a kind of a subjective feeling about something in a creative process. And so that, I don't know whether or not you get the feeling during consultation that you really arrive at a creative process with the group that you're working with. It's not just, one person or a second person or a third person that's doing things. It's all of you together have somehow combined it into something different. Like Abdu'l-Baha says, it's the clash of personal opinions and the spark of truth is happens, right? Do you feel that in the consultation with your friends? Do they feel it? Do they ever talk about it?
I think it would depend on the objective of the consultation, and I think that if you have a very simple objective that we need to achieve a certain decision, there might be no creative process into it. When really it is a consultation where we are trying to find a new solution to something, yes, indeed, you have creativity. And you could also invite other people in that consultation and bring these ideas until one day a decision has to be made. And indeed, the creativity could come with external input, could come from internal consultation from other different people. I remember one day I had to take a difficult decision on accepting or not a new position that was proposed. And I didn't know what to decide. And some people said, yes, take it, it's okay. But I think they were saying that because they were nice to me. So I went to see the people, like, I don't want to say my enemy, but the people I had very little relationship with, and for various reasons, or would not know me. And I asked them, what do you think of me in that position? Is it something? And they were surprised. They said, why you come to me? And few people told me that. And I said, because I think you have a good knowledge. I value your point of view, even if we do not agree all the time. But you have an interest in the good of the organization. So if for the good of the organization I can contribute, you will tell me. But if you think I can't, please tell me no. And they would have no problem to tell me because they have no personal feeling. So sometimes consultation could be also to go in the opposite direction, just to check what is there and see if it is bringing an additional issue to the topic. But this is why I said it requires courage. But it's not easy to go to somebody you don't know very well, or you don't or you don't like. So it's important to do that.
That range of diversity. We don't think about that kind of diversity sometimes. That's
yes.
very important too.
Well, in terms of challenges, and sometimes what I feel is that in a consultation you may be challenged because people have different agenda, and that is important to resume to have a common objective. So if people don't have a common objective, then a consultation will fail. But it will fail not because the process is wrong, but it's because the objective initially or the agenda was not clear. And I think we should be careful not to put the tool in a wrong, let's say, to say the tool is bad when it is the objective which is not clear. So that is something also which I feel could be important to make sure we agree on the objective of the consultation in advance.
And is that how have you found to be the best way to do it when you are encountering hidden agendas? Do you just bring it out on the table? How do you deal with that?
So either you cut the consultation there because it will go nowhere or not in the right direction, and it will end in a compromise, not a constructive solution. And for sure, everybody will be negative. So the best is to put on hold and to restart the individual discussion to make sure we could agree on the objective. And then when individual discussion make it clear, then you bring back the people together. So what I found very useful is to really make individual consultation first, to sound what are the issues, to understand if there is an agenda and if people have some problem of what sort. And then when you come all together, you are in the right spirit to find a solution together to the issue.
Do you have a regular time for consultation with a particular group in your organization? Like every Monday, let's meet at 2:00 in the afternoon and talk about the plan for the week, or do you just do it on a need basis? How do you organize?
In fact, I think it's important to have a regular time where people can recollect and sit down and have an opportunity to ask the question. And so we take a few minutes, so then we know what we have discussed, even if nobody reads the minutes, but they are there in case one day you need to consult. When we have nothing to say, it lasts 15 minutes, but it happens and it allows people to talk. So I do that with the management team with 7 people every week, every Monday at 2:00. But then there are sub-teams, and I ask the people, can I join your discussion even if I have nothing to say? But these days I have a bit of time because we are confined, so the rhythm is different, and I need to learn what you do and to listen. So either I join you 10-15 minutes if you have issues to discuss with me, or otherwise I need to continue learning what you do and be aware. So when you write your report, it's very easy to understand because I know what are the issues, how you have solved them, and eventually I can guide you on the process. And what I see with one manager now, which was very effective, was to because he reported to another person, and it was to say, I'm not your reporting line manager, but I'm available, and if you need to consult, if you trust me, please do it. I'm available. And so he started to share message by saying, just for information, nothing. I ask nothing. And I just respect it. And eventually, time to time, I say, have you tried that approach? Or what do you think? And a number of issues were solved. But the key problem is still recurring. And by following the issue weeks after weeks, I realize that now we need to escalate the problem because it requires senior management decision when people are stuck with the issue. And whatever consultation, it didn't work because there were a power game into the story. So when you have a power game, you will go nowhere. You know, it's a question, I am the manager, I am responsible, and you have nothing to say. So we don't move. And then I feel that now enough is enough. Let's escalate to higher level. And I have started to prepare the higher level by saying, here there is a strategic issue to address. So we need your guidance. So they are open. And a very good approach when you address senior managers is often to say, well, there is an issue I would like to consult with you to get your advice or to get your views. And people are always very happy to provide their views and their advice. So that is a little bit ego massaging, but it's very effective because then you got the point of view as a senior manager in a very neutral way because it's just a discussion and you can proceed after. So that is also a very, very good tool that I have experienced several times.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever suggested to somebody that not within your group, but just somebody you know in another organization or in another department or something, did you ever talk to them and say, well, you know, consultation may be something that you could use in your work? Have you ever suggested that to someone else? And if so, how did they take it?
Well, by sharing some experience, it inspires some people. And of course, there are some booklet either in the Baha'i Faith or in EBBF, which is easy to share as a reference, as a tool. I was also sharing one very specific consultation I did many years ago when I was in Zimbabwe, when I had to lay off many staff in the middle of economical crisis. And you know, I had this CBBF booklet indicating that how to help or how to understand the value of work for people that you are laying off. And that was really important for me because if I understand that the people lose their job, they lose their living means, or they lose a social position, or they lose a technical challenging position, or they lose their dignity if they don't have a job. So when you understand what it means for the people to work and to bring the consultation to how to compensate what they will lose, then you are in a better level of discussion, because if you propose a package for those who just look for money, they will be happy. But if you propose money to somebody who loses a social position, nothing will cover that, and no money will be sufficient. So we should not speak on the same way, and it's better to propose that the money help to find another job, or the money help to project and to assist people in finding a new job. And so I had this fascinating process, which lasted 3 months when I was in Zimbabwe, to understand what is a meaning of work, how people value that, what would be a reasonable package, what we agree as management and as staff. And eventually, at the end, people had to decide, do they accept or not this package? So we propose a letter and we put in writing every condition. We tell them, before signing it, go back home, discuss it with your family, and eventually you sign when you are ready. So they had the power to decide. It was not given a letter, this is it. But it was, here is a letter, reflect, come back if you have questions. So eventually everybody came back, they have signed the letter, they were happy with the process. And when we tell them, here is a package for your departure, what will you do with that package? And some had no idea. So we accompany the process of telling people, what can you do with that money? So one say, I will buy a truck to do some business, I will buy an apartment for renting, I will put for the studies of my children. And then everybody talk about not the money, but the project and the meaning they gave to it. So when they left the office, we did a party. Everybody was there at the party and so happy. And someone from Geneva was there and they said they all lost their job and they are laughing and smiling. And one colleague responded, yes, we lost our job, but with dignity. And I think that was for me the best reward, to say that in the end, the process was the shortest, because that was a word program, a word efforts to reduce the workforce in many countries. So if I look at our 15 office, this office was nearly the cheapest, with a smoother process, and we had no court case, we had nothing. So in the end, it was done, wrap up and finish, and everybody go on in life.
Françoise, this has been really useful. Everything that you've said really comes very close to a lot of the themes that we're talking about in the course, and really listening to practical experience and really the way that you approach consultation in your work really seems to be so successful and so heartfelt and so wonderful.
I think you've covered it. It's been so wonderful to hear your stories, Françoise. This is so inspiring to hear how you go about it, and you are so thorough and so dedicated to this process, and it brings out ideas and how we can use this approach in other circumstances and other organizations. And thank you. This has been really great.
Do you have a few last words for us, Françoise? Because really, it's given us a lot of really nice things to talk over with the participants.
Yeah. I would like maybe to conclude by saying that among all consultation I have done, finally the most difficult was what I call the home consultation. For example, with my children, because it's not only to decide where do we go on holidays, which could be called a consultation, but what studies do you want to do, or when I accepted this new position in Budapest, the question would be would they come with me or not, and so on. Do I accept the job or not? So I involved my children, because I said, this is a decision affecting the whole family. Can we consult about it to understand the consequences, what it will change for you, for me, how can we mitigate some elements, and eventually, they will not follow me because they are at the level of studying at university, and of course it's different. But I realized that before my son finishes his diploma, he has 1 year to go. So I said maybe the only way will be to return every 2 weeks, to be the weekend there, to look into things. And people say, are you sure it's the right way? And I say, no, I'm not sure it's the right way, but otherwise I do not go. And will it be a better way? I'm not sure as well. So I try to follow my conviction that if I'm a happy mother and really motivated and showing an example to my children, giving them space for their own life and to see how they can manage a little bit in a different context, let's try. If something does not work, of course I will adjust. But for me, it means we have consulted, we have some element, so a decision is taken for now, but that decision can be changed, can be revised, can be adjusted. And this is why I believe consultation is a permanent process, and it should be at work or in family or in whatever social group. It's very important that people don't see consultation is done at once, a decision is taken and everything is in stone. On the contrary, it's a process which allow a lot of flexibility, and then the children know that no, something doesn't work, we do not agree, let's rediscuss. So if you can do that with your family and feel there is, as they say, justice, or now they often say, well, you consulted, we have decided together, so now you cannot say this, you cannot do that. So they are becoming an equal voice. And even as a parent, I don't have the power as such, because we have consulted, so the power was shared on the table. And we all agree and took decision together. So when you have a shared decision, then you need a new consultation for a shared change of that decision. So I think that is also an element which I found important. And another aspect is that what I call co-creation, because we talk about creativity, but another one could be co-creation. Then you create a new solution together, which is an aspect of consultation where sometimes there is not one solution, but you have to co-create the model. And this is what I've done with this new building. We co-create the building with staff, with local inhabitants, with the community and the local authority. And of course, it is our building. We have made all decisions. We have managed this process, but everybody feels part of it. So that is why it's powerful. It's very strong.
Wow, that's really wonderful. Actually, you really came to the subject of the last unit in the course that we're preparing now, where we do talk that in consultation the decision is taken, but it's not the final decision. It needs to be reviewed. It needs to be discussed again, perhaps. And it's kind of a permanent process, as you've talked about. And the other thing that really I like also is I often feel within the Baha'i community, we often think this is Baha'i consultation and it's only for Baha'i activities. But in fact, it's not. It's consultation, and I think the Baha'u'llah, the Prophet founder, gave it to the world for everything. It's not just for us in a local spiritual assembly meeting. It's for businesses, it's for families, it's for